We are here officially, ladies and gentlemen. Birds vs. Boys will be here all off season for everything you need in terms of the NFL. It is officially the off season. We are over 1 week removed now from the Super Bowl. It is combine time. It is draft talk time. It is free agency time. It is time for the shiny new toys. Some toys being older than others, but everybody having every player linked, and being a Cowboys fan or being someone that follows the Cowboys, every single player linked to your team, none of them coming, every single player being linked to the Eagles team, and chances are about 75% of them coming to Philly. So, Aidan, how are you? We love the offseason. We love the draft. You love free agency more than me. I would love to love free agency, but it doesn't seem that I've loved it lately. But, hey, we're all in, so maybe that will change.
You're all in. There's always time to change. There's always time for something new and different, and you can be in on the shiny new toys instead of like on the island of misfit toys where you bring in old wide receivers like Brandon Cooks and T.Y. Hilton. So,
hey, Brandon Cooks had 8 touchdowns this year. Okay,
good for him. I'm doing well. It is the point of the year where weekends roll around and I forget to exist as a human. I'm like SpongeBob when he forgets everything except fine dining and breathing. That's me after football season. And they ask him his name and he doesn't know his name. I'm like, wait, what did I do on weekends before football is on every weekend? I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now. But I love the offseason. I love the NFL draft. I love free agency. I love the idea of hope, I think is what it is. Now, it is the hope that kills you. But right now, I have all the hope in the world that we'll land every free agent that I want.
Every single one.
And every single one.
There's so many. It's definitely that, like, agents just name the Cowboy season just to try and drive the price up because it's like everybody. They're like, oh, Saquon Barkley, perfect fit for the Cowboys. Derrick Henry, also coming to the Cowboys. Josh Jacobs, definitely going to the Cowboys. I'm like, all right, well, we are just getting a trio of running backs, aren't we?
As we get older, understand how this process works, how this industry works more, you can kind of tell where the leaks come from.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely what it's agents drum up interest of your free agent season. It is that's their shiny new toy season as well.
Isn't it interesting when you, and I don't know if this is as prevalent in Philadelphia as it is in Dallas, but when you see reports come out or articles come out from certain journalists that cover your team, you know where that's coming from. Like David Moore for the Dallas Cowboys, the Jones boys feed him what they want out there. So when he writes an article about something big, it's real. And the Cowboys want that out there. When there's others that come out and you're like, okay, well, that's pure speculation. It's just funny how they pick and choose. And when you see something come out, you're either like, okay, that's either something the Cowboys want out there as a deflection, and you should look the opposite way, or that's something where, like, when he was writing about Mike Zimmer a couple weeks ago, you're like, okay, Mike Zimmer's coming to Dallas.
Yeah. I don't know if we necessarily have certain journalists have certain leaks within the team or sources within the team. I say we have a level of trust with the journalists similar to the scale of hot ones. Like, if somebody puts something out and it's the first wing, you're like, all right, this isn't too bad, and I'm not going to pay too much attention to it, and I'm going to go on about my day and continue to answer questions. There's certain people who put stuff out, similar to Derek Gunn, who put something out yesterday. It's like,
that's what I was going to ask you about.
That is when they dump the hot sauce on the last wing, and you're like, I can't breathe right now. That means it's a 10 out of 10, fire alarm, everything off. So when Derek Gunn is one of those journalists who's like, sources say Jalen Hurts had too much going on with the new contract on and off the field. It became overwhelming for him. Also, Big Dom had to help Nick Sirianni control his emotions on the sideline. And when he was gone, he struggled with that. It does. It does. Yeah. And hey, you tried to say Big Dom wasn't important. Turns out he was. So, in a way,
the funniest part to me in reading all that and seeing all that was I thought Sirianni's demeanor in the second half of the season got much more blasé than fired up. Like, after that Chiefs game when he was yelling, I didn't see him riled up on the sidelines anymore. Like, the Cowboys game that you guys lost in Dallas, he didn't wear a visor. His eyes were blacker than normal, and it just looked like he was just pacing the side. Are there videos of him blowing up on players?
The Christmas game, which is ironically the only game they won in the backstretch, they were all yelling at each other over something, and we never found out what it was, and we don't even know what he was mad about. And he could have actually been right, because I think Hassan Reddick was also mad because he was coming off the field, and there was a timeout problem, and he was yelling, and nobody was on the same page. And he was yelling like in Devontae and AJ's direction, and the defense was on the field. So I have no idea what was going on. So I think that was part of it. But yeah, I mean, Tony Soprano, Nick Sirianni, just two great Italian leaders with a few emotional control problems.
I would say if I'm an Eagles fan, Hulu does not have live sports anymore if I'm Jalen Hurts.
Wait, that is so great that you bring that up, because they are cursed. I'm looking into Hulu, and I'm beginning to catch on to something. If your athlete does a Hulu has live sports commercial, bad things happen.
Is this the new Madden curse?
It might be the new Madden. I think about this all the time. As soon as I see an athlete on a Hulu commercial, I'm like, too far. You've done too much. Scale it back. I don't want to see you on the Hulu commercials. I want to see you on the football field. Hulu, I don't know why Hulu is my barometer.
Who else has been? Saquon Barkley.
Saquon was one. Dame Lillard was another. I think Joel Embiid was also on a Hulu commercial. There was somebody else. I was like, don't do this. Jalen is one of them. And I'm going to do an investigative journalistic story into Hulu has live sports, because I think they're out to get us.
So I think what this leads to everything is both of our teams have a lot of needs heading into free agency and the draft.
Yeah.
And then we have the clowns of the world, aka Colin Cowherd, saying that the Washington Commanders and Dan Quinn with quarterback to be assigned soon is going to win the division. Cowboys in the wild card, and the Eagles just faltering into the wind.
Very funny. By the way,
he's always wrong every year
on purpose.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, that's a big thing in media these days. Do you want to yell about the coaches and the players, or do you want to watch JJ Redick do a video breakdown on pick and rolls in the Pelicans offense? So that's what we want to do today. Let's set the needs for the offseason, and then let's do our first mock draft. How do we address those needs? What are issues that plagued our two teams from keeping us from a Super Bowl this year, aside from the fact that the Cowboys might be cursed?
Let's see.
How do we get better?
Without talking about this part, let's see if we can do the top need for both of our teams together at the same time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Linebacker.
I was going to say linebacker, and then I froze because I thought of something else. Because I think we have the same exact needs for 1 and 2. So let's get into it now, because this is perfect. Because I think 1 or 2, I think both of them would be up there. Okay. So if we didn't say linebacker, would you say secondary is number 2 for you guys?
I would say it's offensive line slash back end of the secondary. Yeah.
Okay. Offensive line, another one for us too, because we don't know. Our all-pro center could be out. And then if he is, do one of the guards kick to center, or did they play so well as guard that you keep them there? They were sitting at guard as the heir apparent to Kelsey at center, and they both figured out how to play guard pretty well. So do we move them, or do we find a new center? So I would agree offensive line is definitely one in the Eagles as well, depending on what happens. And in general, they always go offensive line.
Yeah. And you would say, I mean, Kelsey has to make this decision within the next 2 weeks.
He has to do it before. I mean, they're going to give him as much time as he wants.
Of course.
Yeah. But he's...
Like, it has to be done before the draft, because...
definitely. Yeah, because they would have to draft.
Because there may be a chance, like if Johnson from Oregon, the center, is sitting there at 22 for you,
Johnson Powers.
Face.
Powers Johnson
Yes.
is his name. Thank you.
If Powers Johnson's sitting there staring you in the face, and you know Kelsey's retired, there's a chance the Eagles jump on that. If he's still wishy-washy in the air, and there may be another player of a position of need, they may go somewhere else.
They might go with him anyway and just keep doing this heir apparent thing and developing offensive linemen under Jeff Stoutland, and then at the end, like someone's got to play center, and they'll just keep developing guys until Kelsey does retire if he comes back for another year. So
And
I don't think Powers Johnson, the little bro, is off the table even if Kelsey comes back.
and they may also take him to keep him away from the Cowboys too at 24, which that is a need for them because Tyler Biadasz is going to be a free agent. I don't see them re-signing him. He had his ups. I think he had more downs than ups. So center is going to be, and if he's sitting there at 24, I would run the card in. But that's another reason why. I mean, it's not the main reason, but you help your team and hurt your rival. Hey, it's a good day.
That's a double up. Love a good double up. So we'll go back. Offensive line, I think for sure is a name that'll position group that'll come up. I think middle rounds for sure with both of our teams. If you've looked in the past, they like to address it. The Eagles second round for sure. Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson, two names that I just brought up at guard, both second round picks. But let's go back to linebacker because I do think that's a pressing need. I think that the Eagles will have a differing strategy this year. In the past, the Eagles have treated linebacker and picking linebackers the way that Happy Gilmore picks caddies. Like, oh, you're on the street? Okay, can you be my caddy today? Hey, young kid, can you be my caddy today? He finds the homeless guy. Can you be my caddy today? That's how the Eagles have addressed linebacker in the past. I think this is the offseason that you see a differing culture change with that position. They have been able to adapt in the past. You look at the Jalen Reagor debacle. They just started going best player on best teams. It's how you ended up with Devontae Smith at wide receiver. Instead, I think that they've gone so far on the extreme side of not valuing linebackers that now they have to almost overcorrect. And I don't know if that means signing someone like Patrick Queen or addressing it in the draft with someone like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. But you're right. It is a position of need, and they can't keep just finding guys off the street to be your caddy for Happy Gilmore anymore.
So it's interesting that you say that, and it's kind of almost the same thing with the Cowboys recently, right? Yes, they drafted Micah Parsons as a linebacker in the first round a few years ago, but obviously, he's more of an edge now / weapon. I think Mike Zimmer's going to use him a lot more up the A gap, which I'm really excited. But what I'm saying is he's not a true linebacker, right? They got Jabril Cox from LSU, didn't work out. He's in Washington now, right? Leighton Vander Esch was a first-round pick. Injury guy. We've always known he's had an injury guy. I think his career is over. Damone Clark, another injury guy, coming off spinal fusion surgery.
That alone.
It was insane that he even played a snap his rookie year, but he did, and then he was thrown into it. And this season, you kind of saw him have some flashes, but some spots where, it looked like he was guessing. And that's the thing. When the Cowboys have bad linebacker play, it's a lot of the time because they have bad eyes, bad vision. That was the one thing that Leighton Vander Esch did well, was he always knew where to be. He knew how to read the offense. So then they had safeties basically playing linebacker, which is insane. Marquise Bell did it well, but we saw against teams like the Bills where they just overpowered them and they couldn't do it. So I think the Cowboys are probably going to do both, Aidan. I think they're going to sign a guy and draft. And I don't know if that means they're going to sign a guy like Patrick Queen, but maybe somebody like, Michael Kendricks, who's on the Rams, or the Chargers, but he has a chance of being cut, and he was a Zimmer guy, right, in Minnesota. So you can kind of connect the dots, and then maybe draft a guy like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I would love a guy like Patrick Queen, but let's face it, there's a lot of questions around him too, because he was calling the defense in Baltimore. He was okay, but then he played really well. But what was the difference, Aidan? Roquan Smith was next.
I was going to say Roquan Smith was next to him. So we just need to get another if we sign this all-pro linebacker, then if we just sign one more all-pro linebacker, we might be in a good spot.
Oh, you mean that all-pro linebacker that was just sitting out there for either of our teams to go trade for?
Either of us could have traded for him. And then the Bears took TJ Edwards to replace him. It ended up being a good pick, and he ended up leading the team in tackles and being a Pro Bowler. So we lost out on both of them.
How about it?
How about it? So that's where we are.
You did win the Darius, don't call me Darius, Shaq Leonard fight.
Yeah. And here we are with team needs being linebacker. So that kind of tells you all you need to know about how that went.
So, yeah, we'll put linebacker up there at the top for both of us.
Love it.
You mentioned your your questions at offensive line with Kelsey and all that. The Cowboys, I think, have massive questions as well at offensive line because, one, like I mentioned, Tyler Biadasz, free agent. He's not the best center in the world, but there's offensive linemen get paid, so he's probably going to end up somewhere else. Tyron Smith came out this week saying he has no plans to retire. He's a free agent. So what happens with him? Zach Martin, is he at the end? Is he going to retire? It's almost kind of like the Kelsey thing. It's not as much in the forefront, I think, but that's a possibility. So there is a legitimate possibility where you have 3 openings on the offensive line this offseason.
I'll tell you what, we love the draft. It'd be hard to overcorrect and find 3 offensive line starters in the draft. It'd be tough.
There's a couple on the team. TJ Bass played really well this year when he stepped in. Hoffman played well at center when he had to play against Washington. So they do have some options on the team, but you also could be losing 2 future Hall of Fame All-Pros.
Hard to come back from that one.
So, yeah, I'll put offensive line up there too.
Offensive line. All right, I'll touch on secondary, and then we'll get into the actual mock draft. The reason I was thinking secondary over linebacker is because I think there's multiple positions within that position group that need to be improved. Both safety, corner, even if slot corner, if Avonte Maddox is not back. But to me, that group doesn't excel in anything a secondary should excel at, if we're just being brutally honest. They're not great in coverage. They don't have great speed. They're not great tacklers. Like, there's nothing they do well. They don't force a lot of turnovers. Like, they're not ball hawks. I really want them to look at Xavier McKinney from the Giants. I loved him when the Eagles played against him this year. He's only 24 years old. So now you start to look at it. Sign him, who's 24. You've got Reed Blankenship, who's going into year 3. You've got Eli Ricks, Kaylee Ringo, who are young guys in year 2, and they'll probably draft a corner as well, as we see in this mock draft. So all of a sudden you have this youth movement. They've got a guy in McKinney who can play all over the field, good in coverage. They're bringing him on blitzes against the Eagles. I like that he can play multiple layers and levels within that defense. That helps out a lot. That creates turnovers, that creates pressure. So I just want guys, young guys, athletic guys, all over the field for you. I think he'd be a home run free agency signing. We'll see what happens there. But in the meantime, I do think secondary is a huge, huge, huge need. I would like to totally revamp that entire position group, and let's start it with the mock draft.
And I'm going to agree with you there on Dallas as well. And I'm going to start because Mike Zimmer now is the defensive coordinator, and I've mentioned his name about 5 times already in the show, but I think he's that big of a piece now added. And where does Mike Zimmer excel? Where is his expertise? It's the secondary. It's coverage schemes. He's going to want to get his guys in there. Obviously, Trayvon Diggs is going to be coming off the ACL surgery. Should be good to go to start the season. Deron Bland obviously led the league in picks and pick sixes, but we also saw in times where he got picked on this season. Mm-hmm. Stephon Gilmore, free agent. He had, again, his moments, game-winning interceptions, but then also moments where he looked like he lost a step or 3. And then the safety group, where it was supposed to be your catalyst, right? The best safety group that the Cowboys have had in years. And, Jaron Kearse looked like he had his worst season as a Cowboy. Malik Hooker kind of looked lost at times. And Donna Wilson, again, very up and down. But they have guys like Wanye Thomas who played really well. So I think also the Cowboys need somewhat of a secondary makeover if they are going to play the schemes that Mike Zimmer is going to demand of them. Not ask of them, demand of them.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw this too, and you talked about your new defensive line coach who you didn't even question him.
Yes.
Mike Zimmer came in, and at his press conference, he's like, listen, I know I have a perception of being a jerk. Okay. I think everybody knows that that's the type of guy he is, and like people are questioning now, can that relate to today's NFL players? However, what he did do was bring Greg Ellis in as his assistant defensive line coach, who has been coaching in the college ranks. He was a first-round pick for Dallas, thrived under Zimmer, and they are also using him, I believe, as like that player catalyst, that guy to like put your arm around Aidan when he's getting yelled at and be like, listen, dude, I've been there. I've been in this exact same spot. See it through. He does it to everybody. You're going to make it to the other side.
I mean, that just sounds like a guy who got broken up with this girl. I was trying to get her back. And it's like, I know I've been a jerk, but here's flowers. That is the same type of logic that Mike Zimmer is using.
I mean, I'm good with it. I did like me some Dan Quinn, but I think the time had run out. Have you ever seen Zimmer's girlfriend, by the way?
I have not. Actually, I think I do remember. Yeah, I do remember this. That was like a big thing when he was the coach of the Vikings.
Yeah.
Which was amplified by the fact that he was constantly having eye surgery, so he looked like a pirate from Pirates of the Caribbean, and had an eye patch on at all times. So at times he couldn't even see his wife or girlfriend through his eye patch. But
The only
I do
thing that
remember that
scares
being
me
a
with the
thing.
defensive coordinator having eye problems for the Cowboys is I don't know if you remember the year we started this podcast when Mike Nolan was the Cowboys defensive coordinator and he was in a press conference and he touched his eye and he got hot sauce in his eye
Oh
and he had to
yeah,
stop the press conference.
that first year was content galore, and not in a good way. Every week we'd talk about something new. Like, I can't believe it got lower.
Our teams need to thank us because I think since we started this show, we have elevated both squads.
I like to think so because year one didn't go too well.